The first hunt. The sky was burning. Captain Alex Carter stood on the rooftop of a half-collapsed building, his rifle clutched in white-knuckled hands as he watched the alien patrol move through the ruined streets below. The Zarkai were hunting again. They moved in a slow, methodical formation, their 8-foot-tall forms shifting unnaturally, their reptilian skin rippling as their adaptive camouflage made them blend with the environment. Their elongated heads twitched, scanning for movement, their razor-sharp talons flexing in anticipation of a kill. Just weeks ago, the Zarkai had arrived in orbit, descending in massive, bioorganic warships. They hadn't spoken, hadn't negotiated. They simply descended from the sky and began the slaughter. Major cities fell within days. The military had fought back, but human weapons had proved useless against the Zarkai's energy shields and advanced armor. Now, the world belonged to them. But Carter and his team were about to remind these alien predators that humans were not easy prey. The ambush. He tapped his comms. "Briggs, are they in position?" From a concealed spot, Sergeant Noah Briggs responded, his deep voice steady. "They're moving into the kill zone. Ready when you are." Carter turned to Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, their sniper. She lay prone beside him, eyes locked on her scope. "Take the shot." She exhaled slowly, adjusting for wind and distance, and then squeezed the trigger. The Zarkai warrior's head snapped back, a spray of thick, dark blood misting the air. The beast collapsed, twitching. For a split second, the other aliens froze in confusion. They had never been hunted before. That was their mistake. "Now!" Carter barked. From the alleyway, Briggs triggered the trap, a set of improvised explosives rigged to a fuel tanker. The explosion ripped through the patrol, sending 2 Zarkai flying. The remaining 3 roared in fury, their bodies shifting color as they activated their natural cloaking ability, fading into near invisibility. Carter didn't panic. He had studied their movements, their weaknesses. They thought camouflage made them invincible. "Hayes, infrared mode. Find them." She toggled her scope to thermal vision. "Got one," she whispered, adjusting her aim. Another shot. Another Zarkai fell. The remaining 2 charged forward, their monstrous speed closing the distance fast. Briggs stepped out of cover, unloading his shotgun into one of the beasts at point-blank range. The alien's armor cracked, but it wasn't enough to stop it. The creature swung its talons, catching Briggs across the chest. He screamed, blood spraying as he was thrown backward. Carter emptied his rifle into the beast, aiming for the weakened armor. The bullets finally punched through, and the creature let out a strangled, guttural sound before collapsing. The last Zarkai turned and fled into the ruins. Carter exhaled, reloading his rifle. "Hayes, did you see where it went?" She shook her head. "It's fast, probably calling for reinforcements." "Then we don't have much time." The trophy. Carter crouched beside one of the dead Zarkai, gripping his combat knife. With a grunt, he sliced through the thick, reptilian hide, peeling back layers of muscle and armor plating. "What the hell are you doing?" Hayes asked, watching in disgust. "Learning." He pulled free a section of the beast's natural armor, running his fingers over it. "If we're going to fight them, we need to know how they bleed. How they die." Dr. Evelyn Park, their team's biologist, knelt beside him, already examining the remains. "This armor is tough, but not invincible. See the wound?" The sniper round penetrated the eye socket, soft tissue. "We need to aim for weak points." Carter nodded. "We'll use their own tactics against them. If they think they're the hunters, then we'll make them the hunted." Hayes finished. Briggs groaned, sitting up with a deep gash across his chest. "So what now? We keep killing these bastards one by one." "No," Carter said, eyes dark with cold determination. "We hunt them all. The hunters become the hunted." The Zarkai patrol never returned to their base. For the first time since their arrival, the invaders realized that humans were fighting back. The remaining Zarkai warriors moved cautiously through the ruins, their predatory arrogance shaken. They scanned their surroundings more carefully, pausing at shadows, their elongated heads twitching at the slightest noise. They could smell the scent of their fallen, and they didn't like it. The trap. Carter crouched in the darkness of a collapsed freeway tunnel, his breath slow and steady. His team had spent the last 2 days hunting lone Zarkai scouts, picking them off one by one. The creatures were learning, adapting. They no longer moved alone. But humans were masters of adaptation too. Movement, Hayes whispered over the comms. 2 Zarkai, maybe more. They're tracking us. Good, Carter murmured. Let them. He glanced at Dr. Evelyn Park, who was kneeling beside a Zarkai corpse they had killed earlier. She had coated their blades and bullets in a toxin she had extracted from the alien's own body. The compound reacted with Earth's atmosphere, causing a mild paralysis effect on the Zarkai. If they get wounded, they'll slow down, Park had explained. Maybe even panic. That was the plan. Make the predators feel fear. From his position on a rooftop, Corporal Miguel Reyes piloted a small, silent drone above the street. The drone's thermal imaging picked up 3 Zarkai warriors, moving in a slow, sweeping pattern. They know we're here, Reyes muttered. They're hunting us. No, Carter said, gripping his rifle. We're hunting them. The kill. The lead Zarkai paused, its black, glassy eyes narrowing. It sniffed the air, its nostrils flaring. Then it let out a low, guttural sound. They smell the trap, Hayes whispered. Carter's pulse remained steady. Not soon enough. The first explosive went off, triggered by the weight of the lead warrior's step. It wasn't a military-grade mine, just a jury-rigged fuel bomb wired to a pressure plate. The shockwave tore through the air, flames engulfing one of the aliens. The other 2 lunged away from the blast, snarling, their cloaking systems flickering. That was all the opening Hayes needed. Her rifle cracked, sending a round straight through the skull of the second Zarkai. The beast staggered, then collapsed, its body twitching as the toxin entered its bloodstream. The third Zarkai roared, spotting Carter and charging toward him at terrifying speed. He rolled aside at the last second, feeling the rush of air as the alien's claws swiped inches from his face. It slammed into a rusted-out car, crushing the metal like paper. Briggs appeared from behind the wreckage, wielding a homemade spear crafted from steel rebar. He drove it into the alien's exposed side, twisting it deep into the soft tissue between its ribs. The Zarkai shrieked, its body convulsing. Its limbs twitched violently. The toxin was working. Carter stepped forward and fired 2 rounds into its skull, ending it. The message. As the echoes of battle faded, the team surveyed their work. 3 Zarkai dead. No human casualties. That's 6 this week, Reyes said, checking his drone feed. They're going to notice. Let them, Carter replied. He crouched beside the lead Zarkai's body, pulling a combat knife from his belt. What are you doing? Hayes asked, sending a message. With a cold, practiced motion, Carter carved a deep, jagged X into the alien's chest. Then, with the help of Briggs, he hoisted the body onto a ruined street lamp, letting it hang in the open. A warning. A challenge. You think they'll understand that? Reyes asked. They'll understand one thing, Carter said, wiping the blood from his knife. We're not the prey anymore. Escalation. Hours later, deep within the ruins, the Zarkai High Command received the news. The reports were impossible. The weak, fragile humans were killing their elite hunters. This was unacceptable. The Zarkai leader, a towering brute named Viekaris, snarled in fury. He had led the slaughter on 5 worlds. Never had he encountered resistance like this. With a growl, he turned to his warriors. Find them. Hunt them down. Kill them all. But he didn't know. The moment they started hunting Carter and his team was the moment they became the hunted. The war turns. The Zarkai were changing tactics. Carter knew at the moment his team spotted drones patrolling the ruins. The aliens had finally stopped treating humans like mindless prey. Now they were being cautious. They were afraid. That meant one thing. The humans were winning. But it wouldn't last. If the Zarkai were adapting, so would they. The discovery. Got something, Reyes muttered, hunched over his stolen Zarkai console. The alien tech was a nightmare to work with, its organic interface responding unpredictably, but he had learned to coax information out of it. Carter leaned over his shoulder. What are we looking at? A heat map, Reyes said. I ran scans on the patrol patterns. The biggest concentration of them is here, He pointed to a location on the holographic map. Hayes whistled. That's their command center. The Zarkai War Base, built over the ruins of a former military bunker, was the heart of their operations. Carter's eyes narrowed. If we take that out, we break their hold on the city. Dr. Park adjusted her glasses, studying the readout. Their energy cores, if we overload one, we could trigger an electromagnetic pulse, EMP. Would that disable their tech? Briggs asked. It would do more than that, Park said. If the EMP is strong enough, it could cripple their command network. They rely on neural-linked systems. Take those out, and we cut off their ability to coordinate. Carter smiled grimly. Then that's our next target, the assault. The plan was simple. Infiltrate the command center, plant the charge, and escape before detonation. Simple, but not easy. They moved under the cover of night, weaving through ruined streets, avoiding patrols. They had memorized the alien movement patterns, learned their weaknesses. They reached the outer perimeter of the base, a heavily fortified structure, once human, now covered in Zarkai bioarchitecture, pulsing with eerie organic light. Looks like a damn hive, Briggs muttered. Carter checked his weapon. Let's burn it down. They moved in, silent and lethal. Guards fell one by one, their throats slit, their bodies dragged into the shadows. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of alien flesh. Strange, pulsating structures lined the walls, leaking bioluminescent fluids. This is their command hub, Park whispered, eyes darting around. If we take this out, we shatter their entire operation. Reyes pulled out the EMP device, a makeshift bomb wired with stolen alien energy cells. He set it beside a pulsating Zarkai console. Charge set, he whispered. 3-minute timer. Then let's get the hell out of here, Carter said. The chase. They made it halfway to the exit before the Zarkai alarm screamed to life. They know, Hayes shouted. A Zarkai warrior lunged from the shadows, its massive claws swiping at Carter. He barely dodged, rolling aside as Hayes fired 2 quick shots. The alien staggered, but didn't fall. More Zarkai flooded into the corridors, their guttural snarls echoing through the hive. Run, Carter barked. They sprinted through the tunnels, gunfire and alien shrieks behind them. 30 seconds, Reyes warned. They could burst into the open, the night sky stretching above them. The Zarkai were right behind them, closing in. Then the EMP detonated. A wave of blue energy ripped through the base, sending a shockwave that shattered windows and fried alien technology. The pursuing Zarkai screamed as their neural links short-circuited, collapsing in spasms. Carter turned back, breathing heavily, watching the base collapse in on itself. The Zarkai command network was dead. The war had changed. Back at their hideout, news spread fast. Other resistance groups had seen the explosion. Across the city, humans were rising up, using Carter's tactics, ambushing, hunting, striking where it hurt the most. The Zarkai were in chaos. But the war wasn't over, because in the ruins of their command center, VA Curies had survived. And now, the hunt had become personal. The final hunt. The Zarkai were broken. Ever since Carter's team destroyed their command center, their patrols were disorganized, their drones inactive, their forces scattered. Across the city, human resistance cells rose up, launching attacks on weakened enemy positions. But Carter knew it wasn't over, because VA Curies still lived. And now, he was hunting them. The bait. The resistance had intercepted a Zarkai distress signal, a desperate call for reinforcements. The aliens were cornered, on the verge of collapse. If they were going to end this war, it had to be now. We force VA Curies into a fight he can't win, Carter said, gathering the team in the ruins of their safe house. We make him think we're vulnerable, lure him into an ambush, and take him out. Briggs grinned, cracking his knuckles. About time we stopped running. We won't get a second chance, Hayes warned. Then we make this count, Carter said. The last stand. They set up their final trap in an abandoned skyscraper, the husk of a fallen city where the war had begun. Reyes rigged the elevators and stairwells with explosives, forcing VA Curies and his remaining forces to take one path, straight into their kill zone. Carter and Hayes positioned themselves at strategic vantage points, while Park prepared a final toxin, a concentrated dose strong enough to kill even a Zarkai warlord. And then they waited. The Predator arrives. They didn't have to wait long. VA Curies came at dawn, leading a pack of elite Zarkai hunters. Unlike before, they moved cautiously, their weapons raised, their bodies shifting with their adaptive camouflage. But Carter wasn't afraid. He wanted them to come. When the first Zarkai stepped into the kill zone, Reyes triggered the explosives. The building shook, collapsing sections of the floor. The Zarkai shrieked as debris crushed them, and those who survived were forced into the open. That's when the gunfire started. Hayes took the first shot, dropping a warrior with a single round through its skull. Briggs followed, stepping out of cover and unloading his shotgun at close range, tearing through alien armor. The battle was brutal. Zarkai warriors lunged through the smoke, slashing with their razor-sharp talons. Briggs was knocked back, blood spraying from his shoulder. Reyes took a hit, a Zarkai blade slicing across his side. But they kept fighting. And then, VA Curies entered the battlefield. The duel. He was bigger than the others, standing nearly 9 feet tall, his black armor gleaming, his talons stained with human blood. His eyes locked onto Carter, and in that moment the war faded. It was just Hunter versus Hunter. VA Curies charged, moving with impossible speed. Carter dodged, rolling behind a broken pillar as the alien's claws sliced through solid concrete. He fired, 3 rounds to the chest, but VA Curies barely flinched. The warlord grabbed Carter and threw him across the room, slamming him into a crumbling wall. Pain exploded through Carter's ribs, but he forced himself up. VA Curies lunged again, but Carter was ready. He sidestepped at the last second, driving his knife into the alien's exposed side. The toxin-coated blade sank deep, and VA Curies let out a deafening roar, staggering back. "You feel that?" Carter growled, wiping blood from his mouth. "That's fear." VA Curies snarled and raged. He swung wildly, but his movements were slowing. The toxin was spreading through his veins. Carter seized the moment. With one final strike, he drove his knife into VA Curies' throat, twisting the blade. The warlord gurgled, his massive form shuddering. Then, with one last rasping breath, he collapsed. The war ends. The remaining Zarkai fled, their morale shattered. Without their leader, they were nothing more than scattered prey. By nightfall, the city was theirs again. As Carter stood on the rooftop, watching the stars above, Hayes stepped beside him. "It's over," she said. Carter exhaled, staring at the burning remains of the Zarkai warbase. "No," he murmured. "It's just the beginning. Because if the Zarkai had come to hunt humans, then humanity would hunt them right back.